Good morning, my name is Elliot Corn, and today I would like to bring you into the world of the classical musician. Being a classical musician is not easy, but it has its benefits. Most people have a flawed understanding of what exactly a classical musician does day to day and the type of work that a classical musician does, but after today, you will not be one of those people. I have been playing piano for around 9 years now, and classical music is one of my favorite genres of music. Today I will talk about what it takes to be a classical musician, what classical musicians deal with day to day, like some of the issues, namely chiropractic issues and stress-related issues, and also some of the benefits of being a classical musician. So let's start off with what it takes to be a classical musician. Well, unlike most professions, classical musicians begin training at a very young age, and it usually takes around 16 years for a musician to achieve mastery. In the 2011 article, Turning Points in the Development of Classical Musicians in the Journal of Ethnographic and Qualitative Research, Alina Gabor describes the daily work of a classical musician as involving intense work periods and also public displays of competence. So this means that someone who wants to be a classical musician must be willing to work for a very long time, and also once they have finished working for that long period of time, they must continue to work and also to perform in front of others, so it is very difficult. Being a musician also has its drawbacks. In the 1922 book Story Lives of Master Musicians by Harriet Brower, she describes Beethoven near the end of his life. She says that Beethoven had a very stress-filled and anxiety-filled life, and that towards the end of his life he was very sick and completely deaf and weak. And he was one of the most celebrated musicians of all time. Beethoven is like one of the top musicians that you think of when you're like, oh, think of a musician, Beethoven. And the fact that he had to deal with all this stress and anxiety, even though he was like in the top echelon of musicians, really says something about the type of work that musicians go through day to day. Another problem facing musicians is chiropractic issues. Like I said before, musicians spend a large amount of time working every day, and that's usually around 3 hours at minimum daily for a professional musician. And this can have its drawbacks. In the 2004 article, Occupational Injuries Suffered by Classical Musicians Through Overuse in the journal Clinical Chiropractic by M.G. Hemming, they describe some of the chiropractic issues that might happen to a classical musician. So say you are a young child who is starting to learn an instrument, and you're sitting down at a piano, and maybe you're sitting wrong and you're arching your back, and if you're doing that day and day, like again, over and over while you're a child, and your body is still developing, then that can have chiropractic issues, like for your back. And maybe you're playing a violin like this and your back is kind of curved a little bit, so you need to be very careful when you're learning an instrument to have good posture, or you might have some chiropractic issues. So I've talked about some of the things that are facing classical musicians, some of the troubles like chiropractic issues and stress-related issues, but what are some of the benefits? Well, in the 2017 article, Being a Musician is Good for Your Brain, in the Huffington Post, Caroline Gregoire says that musicians have better reaction times, better brain development, and better long-term memory than non-musicians. So this is because, say you're a piano player, you're looking at notes, and you're thinking about the notes and then playing them on the piano, and so you're memorizing, and you're seeing pattern recognition. And so the parts of your brain that deal with memorization and pattern recognition grow because your brain is like a muscle, and so that will go with you further in life. So I'd like to wrap up with a quick summary of what I've gone over. Being a classical musician is a very difficult profession. People need to spend a lot of time working on it, and it can have several health issues such as stress-related issues and also chiropractic issues, but it also has various benefits such as cognitive benefits. Being a classical musician is a very difficult profession, but it has its benefits. Thank you for being such a wonderful and attentive audience.